Someone once said, "We shape our buildings, thereafter they shape us." With this, I would like to hear a little bit about your academic and professional journey.
Okay, so basically I'm basically from India. So I did my bachelor's and master's both from India itself.
Mhm.
And so I completed my bachelor's in 2013 and did my master's in environmental architecture, which I got it complete in 2016. After which I worked for about 4.5 years in India.
Mhm.
And I moved here to Canada in 2018, where I did a small bridging course with Ryerson University, which
Mhm.
is for internationally trained architects, focusing on the Ontario-based architecture. So it's like a brief course for international architects, specially designed for international architects.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
did that, and then I started working here in Ontario itself.
So you have work experience for about 5 to 6 years in total.
Yeah, so I did my almost 5 years in India, and
Mhm.
now in Canada it's been more than 3 years.
Oh,
So like
wow.
close to 8 years, almost 8 years of practical experience
This is
in
great.
architecture. Yeah.
This is great. So you are an architect now. Why did you decide to pursue this as a career option?
So it's basically when I was in my school.
Mhm.
So I was a bit inclined towards art and craft.
Mhm.
So basically, I was not sure about architecture at that point,
Mhm.
but it was my elder brother who just, just asked me to just look into this field. He was an engineer himself,
Uh-huh.
so he just told me that if you are inclined towards art and craft, then why don't you just look into this field, any kind of a creative field. So that's where actually came to know about architecture. I
Mhm.
was about in eighth standard at that point of time,
Oh, wow.
and probably eventually when I was in my 10th standard, we actually had a career counseling in our school itself.
Mhm.
So at that point, I just get more information about this field, and eventually, when I was supposed to get into the professional education after our HSC,
Mhm.
um, I was that at that point of time I was inclined that I would go for architecture. However, I did my other entrances as well for
Yeah.
engineering and for engineering specifically, but I thought that architecture would be good for me
Mhm.
since I was inclined. So I just opt
Towards
for
arts and
architecture.
craft.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That makes more sense because I mean, I think eighth grade is sort of the right age group where you're sort of understanding what your chances are or what your choices are and what your interests are. And I think that that is sort of a turning point for you where you sort of
Mhm.
realized your skill set and then you turned it into your career path after your HAC, which is a little bit like your brother sort of inspired you to look into this field. But
Yeah, yeah.
did you also come across some architects or somebody who was experienced in this field? Like, did you also come across like seminars or let's say interviews that sort of inspired you to then become or choose this or pursue this?
So not exactly, but I knew few of my brother's friends who were in architecture at
Uh-huh.
that point. I mean, they were actually completing their architecture at that point of time, and probably I just interacted with them and just got their experiences. They were kind enough to tell me what is architecture is all about and stuff related to that. And eventually, architecture, there is also an entrance exam for architecture
Yeah.
like NATA. So
Nata, exactly.
yeah, yeah. So when I actually went for that entrance exam, I found it very interesting,
Hmm.
and probably since I was giving all the entrances at that point of time, I give NATA also, CET for engineering, and even AIEEE. So I was preparing for all the entrances at that point of time. So, but I found this interesting NATA entrance exam, and so
Nata entrance exam. Wow.
yeah. So and
That is
from there on, I
actually.
just got into
Mhm.
architecture.
That is actually very similar to my experience of how I got into architecture, which was through the AIEEE, because I went to give the first part of AIEEE, which is, I think, engineering. And then the second part was architecture, which my father accidentally just paid the fees and he made me give the exam, which when I was giving the exam, I sort of realized, oh, wow, this is interesting.
Yeah, and actually when I was doing architecture in 2008, when I started off, there were not many colleges and hardly any people were actually into architecture. So I was into double mind whether I should go for it or not.
Yeah.
But I thought that if this is what I want to do and this is what, if I like doing it, let's go for it. Because all my friends, including Nazim, and we had a group of people who were into science field, and they were actually all inclined towards engineering or medical. I was the only one who was into architecture first, but I was then later on pretty sure that I will just go for it.
Good. Oh, good. I'm glad you did. I have somebody who is also an architect.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So that leads us to our next question. Did your close ones agree with your career path? Since now that you've said that everybody else was doing something else and you were sort of the only person going into a different path, and how hard was it to convince your parents, say, or like talk to this about with your friends that you're sort of doing something different?
I would say my parents were always like cooperative. I mean, they were never focused that they were not influential to a particular field that you do this or do that. They were always quite supportive in whatever I wanted to do. So there was no question of doubting my path towards architecture. And I'm a kind of a person, if I want to do something, then I will do that. I'm not going to listen to someone. So even if they would have said no, but if I want to do something, I will do that only. That's the kind of person I am. Yeah, so but that was not the case. They were kind enough, they were cooperative, and yes, so I just get into architecture.
Yeah, because I'm sure. Yeah. I think when you're studying architecture, you do really need support of your family, especially when you're like awake all night and building models and like your whole house is a mess.
Yeah. So see, this was like a first experience for everyone. Like no one in the past in my family was into architecture. My brother was into engineering, and few of my cousins were into medical. So no one was into architecture. So it's so new for everyone.
Yeah.
So first year was a bit like difficult for everyone, even for me, because I was not expecting like this hell out of work in the first year. Like though I was into creativity and stuff, I was. I mean, I like doing creative stuff, but I never had an exposure of such kind. No one has an exposure of such kind before they come into architecture. So it was a bit difficult, like 6 to 8 months in the first year of architecture. There were like a lot of difficulties which I had in terms of, especially in terms of design, because one thing is that art and craft is okay, that you like doing art and craft, but architecture is not only about art and craft.
Exactly.
It's a mixture of everything.
Yes, it's about math, it's about physics, it's about everything, like, right? It's not everything, just about art.
Yeah. So the first 6 to 8 months were a bit difficult for me, but eventually, once you get into the rhythm of the course, I was just into the field itself. So initial months were like tough for me, but later on, I got a lot of interest in the field itself, and it just kept going from there.
That's inspiring.
So it was fun. After that, it was a bit fun for me.
Oh, good. Our next question is essentially, we all go through a lot of struggle, and I think you've touched base a little bit about this, but what kind of challenges did you face that you want our listeners to know, whoever wants to pursue architecture?
Okay, so as I said, that the first 6 to 8 months were a bit tough for me. Tough in the sense that architecture, like there are various subjects, technicals, design, history, humanities. So technicals and humanities is fine. Like it's bit, since we have already a background of physics and maths, so it's a bit easier for me in terms of technical subjects. But when it comes to design, I mean, you have to be it's more about imagination and creative stuff. when it comes to design. So it's not only about art and craft or doing models, but it's about creative. And end of the day, architecture is something which is related to human beings. It's more practical. When you just say art and craft, it might be influential, but architecture is something, it is influential, but actually it's very practical.
Yes.
Because it has to accommodate the present needs of the people. It has to be catering to the present needs. So it's important that creativity is fine, but you have to be correlation. There has to be a correlation between design and human life. So to understand that process, it took me a while. Like, and in first year, quite raw. So 6 to 8 months were a bit struggle in that sense to understand the correlation between the design and its practical influence on the people's life. So that was a bit challenging in the initial days for me.
Yeah.
And later on, once eventually when you go through the courses, I mean, eventually throughout the course over the years, you understand much better. But the initial phase was a bit intricate for me at that point.
Yeah, I do get it, because my struggle was through, you said just to 8 months. My struggle was through the first 2 years, when sort of I was struggling to even understand what I'm doing, and my parents were sort of struggling to even understand what I am doing in my, like, all the day. Like, I used to be in college all day, all night. And they used to be like, okay, do you want to change your field, or are you sure you want to continue this?
I mean, unlike other fields like engineering, I'm not very sure about medical, but since my brother was into engineering, I knew that what is the process, how an engineer goes through in the Indian education system. So he I mean, he used to have a good balance between his personal as well as academic life. So, but when I came into architecture, I feel like I was only doing architecture. I was not involved in any other kind of activity. So
I hear you.
That was new for everyone, for all of us. But if you are interested in doing it, then I guess there's no issue. If you spend whole of your day into architecture, into college.
Yeah.
But if any point, if you feel that if you are not this is not you are looking into, then it becomes a bit difficult for people. Because I've seen people in my class that when I started architecture in the first year, we were like about 110 or so. But by the time we were in third year, we were like only 70 people, 70 students in the class. And by the time when I graduated in 2013, I guess only 10 to 15 people graduated in 5 years.
Oh, wow.
So this is how I mean, it's not that straightforward. Like, I understand that once you get into engineering or medical, there are chances. Like, one of my professors told me once that once you get into engineering or medical, there is 100% chance that you will become an engineer end of the day, or medical end of the day. But in architecture, there is no guarantee that you might fall apart in third year. If you are not feeling that interested enough, then there are chances that you might fall apart, you lose enough, and you might not complete it. But thank God it was not the case with me. I managed to complete the course.
Oh, good. Yeah. Well, that leads us to our next question. Just to give an idea to our listeners about what does an architect do. So could you just tell us about what your day-to-day work life looks like?
Okay, so architecture. First of all, that architect is not an engineer. There is a clear difference. I mean, people always think that an architect is an engineer. I used to face this initially in my career, that people never used to understand what an architect is. So architect is basically like a captain of a ship. So when there is for example, if you are my client and you think that you want to do something, it could be anything. Like for example, if you want to design your bungalow, let's take a small example. If you want to design a bungalow, and for example, you are the client, and you come to an architect. So you come to an architect and say that, hey architect, I want to do this. I'm looking to do this house at so and so place. So as an architect, you first get an idea of what this particular project is about. Okay, it's a house project. It's at a particular site. You try to understand So now you get into the process of understanding it, where this particular site is. Is this site feasible for that particular project which my client is looking for? So there is like I would say the pre-designed service first you get into for your client, that actually to see that this particular project is feasible or not. It could be, for example, if in this case, the house project, first we see that this particular house or the client is looking for is feasible enough at that particular site. What are the requirements of the client? Okay, you're looking for a house, it's a 1-story house, 2-story house, 3-story house. Then you see that if it's practically possible to do or not in that particular space.
Yeah.
And most importantly, the budget, because client comes up with a weird idea of doing XYZ thing, but it has to be practically done in a given budget.
Yeah.
So you first do a pre-designed service where you see all the parameters in which is this particular project practical or not. After that, you get into the process of actually, which we say as the schematic design phase. After pre-design, you get into a schematic design phase where actually get into concepts of, you might even say that bubble diagram or something like that, where you actually get into the various requirements of the client. And once those things is done, you get into design development phase where you actually give some kind of an identity or shape to what the raw concept was. And once that concept is done, you get into a building permit phase where you actually get into the city officials, see the practicality, get into the local bylaws, get the necessary approvals, and then you get into the construction phase. So and once you are into the construction, you see how this is the play. Also, one more thing, like you, while doing the building permit phase, when you actually get into various coordinating with various engineers at that point of time. Whether it would be a structural, mechanical, electrical, or environmental specialist.
Even consultants for that matter, right? Like.
Yeah, consultants. Yeah. And after that, once you get into the construction phase, you see how the work is being done. You do site visits, you do general reviews. And after that, once the project is being done, it's been signed off by the architect, consultants, and the city officials. That is how the project comes to an end. And then you also sometimes get into like in the residential project, since it is a small bungalow or something, you won't be getting into a post-occupancy evaluation or stuff like that. But if you are getting into a bigger projects like high-rise residential projects or commercials or for assembly projects, you also do a post-occupancy evaluation where you actually evaluate the project based on where you started in your pre-design, where you're actually looking into the practicality and the financial part of the project. And in the post-occupancy evaluation, actually try to correlate both the things and see where you are standing right now.
Right.
So, but that's basically involved only with the bigger projects.
You actually,
so this is like,
the holistic.
This is like a holistic thing for what an architect does. But once you get, you might not do everything
exactly
in an office.
Yeah.
So some people might only work up till pre-design. They only are focused in pre-design, and they might work up to design development stage, where you actually have a building form is actually developed by design development. Then from design development stage, you actually get into the the city process of the city officials and more about construction point of view after design development. So some people are just focused in that zone.
Right.
And after like some people, like after getting approval from the city officials for the construction, some people are just working in the construction admin phase where you are mostly involved in the construction activity.
So what, I have a follow-up question here. So what is your role with the firm that you're working with? What is your role as a employee?
So I would say that when I actually started with this firm, it's a TS, the firm is TS Architects, and it's a Toronto-based firm. So when I just started in 2018, I was mostly engaged with custom homes and smaller projects. So I was initially working, you would say, the concept and design development phases, where we actually try and understand the client's requirement and you get into a building form. But as and when you get an understanding of how the system works in this country, especially because it was new for me. So initial first year was mostly about design development, and later on, once you understand about the building physics and building systems, you get it into uh, a more responsible role where you get into working with city officials and construction. So now currently I'm working as a project manager, but I'm mostly dealing with city approval phases and execution of the project. So right now I'm more inclined towards the construction administration, where we actually get into the construction and deliverables during the construction point.
Uh-huh. Well, this is amazing, Sahil. I think our listeners would sort of enjoy how, if they want to pursue their architecture as a career path, I think this would give them the best sort of scenario of what working as an architect looks like. This is amazing.
Yeah, and also one more thing, like in architecture, there is no time. I mean, it cannot be a 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 job in architecture. So I just make it very clear that you work in any part of the world. Architecture is not about 9 to 5 or 9 to 6. There are long working hours as well, and you have to be ready for that.
I think this is like what most architectural firm look like. I think my experience with architectural firm, the work firm that I'm working for, thank God, it's they do have certain standards in place and rules in place, so they do not expect us to work after 6 or 7. I think.
I guess those firms are. I mean,
they are very minimal. Yes,
yeah,
but
they're very minimal. But yeah, based on my experiences both in my home country, India, and working here in Canada as well, so I've seen many firms that they go beyond the time limit.
They do expect you, yes.
Yeah, so they do expect. I mean, they won't tell you, but it's expected
exactly.
that you work.
Unset expectations.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. Yeah. Would you give our listeners or the people who want to sort of pursue architecture any suggestions as to what sort of software or tools they should learn before they even get into architecture?
Before getting into architecture, so I guess there are two very basic softwares, which is like AutoCAD and Revit. If you can get to learn these two softwares before getting into architecture, even the basics would be fine. So once you are into your university education, you can eventually accentuate and develop your skill sets related to that particular software. But to get a basic understanding how things work in architecture, I mean, how the softwares actually are useful in your projects, getting a basic understanding would actually help before getting into architecture. And later on, once you are into college, it's like you will eventually learn. I mean, no one will.
Yeah, you will learn.
Yeah, you will learn on your own, because your projects which you are dealing with make you learn, because you won't be able to do, like, if you take my example, like when I started in 2008, initial first 2 years we used to do like hand drafting and do stuffs mostly through our hands. But once you get into third year, fourth year, the scale of the projects are so big that it's not possible for you to work with your hands anymore.
Yeah.
You have to have used softwares, and you have to have used the software for all the projects. Even for the technicals, you have to use your softwares, not only in design. So it's important that you get a brief understanding of AutoCAD and Revit at initial stage. And then once you're into college, because now most of the colleges, right from the beginning, they are accepting, they are ready for the students to use these softwares. Initially, it was not the case during my time, where we were expected to do hand drafting in first and second year of architecture.
Yeah.
But right now, I don't think so. Most of the colleges are quite open and they are ready to use softwares. So that's pretty good.
Yeah. I think software learning is big, and I think everybody who wants to pursue architecture should have some basic understanding. And I think knowledge would sort of grow as you're into it and doing projects. Yeah.
So AutoCAD and Revit is a very basic software. Basic in the sense, very good conceptual and 2D softwares. But apart from this, you should also learn few softwares which are graphics oriented, like Photoshop or InDesign. And even once you are comfortable with all those softwares, and eventually throughout your process through architecture, you can also get into some energy modeling softwares, which I learned in my master's, like some daylighting softwares, which actually helps you to relate amount of daylight you can get into a building, or some energy modeling software, amount of
which is
energy which
big,
is
right? Yeah, building.
so yeah, building related to building physics. So those softwares you can basically learn at your later stage in your career, but the initial phase, some 2D, 3D softwares are important to learn
to get you started. Yeah.
Get you started. Yeah.
All right, this was amazing. Let's get to our next question. What are some of the positive things that our listeners should consider if they see themselves in your shoes or profession?
Positive things. So firstly, it is not like what I enjoy about my profession is it's like it's not a repetitive thing. It's mostly like with every project there is a new challenge because for every project there is a new site. So you cannot just copy paste one design into another site. So it's a new process. It's like dealing with the new designs every time. So it's more like, since this is a creative field as well, so you are into design, into different projects, and with every project there is a new something freshness. So I'm not bored in whatever work I do. I'm not bored because there's every time there is a new challenge, new design, some freshness in the project. So that is the best part I like about this profession.
Yeah. That is actually an interesting point, because I recently came across a contractor who actually told me every new architectural project is a new startup, because you are sort of getting involved with every single consultant, subcontractor, contractor, every single person is new, including your clients and of course the project itself. But yes, it's sort of a new startup.
Yeah, and also one more thing is that every client is different. I mean, the approach towards one client towards design is different, and for the other client is different. So like it's no every person is different. So like every design has to be different because it has to cater end of the day the user of that particular project. So that is the important part.
Yeah. Any professional achievements that you would like to share to inspire our listeners?
Professional achievements, like when I was in India, since I did my master's in sustainable architecture, I was more inclined towards doing buildings which are more energy efficient. So in my previous office, I worked on many projects which were like LEED certified projects. Like LEED is one of the you must be knowing that LEED is one of the certification process of it's related to sustainability. So
I am LEED GA myself.
Oh yeah. So I got an opportunity to work on one of the LEED certified projects. It was an institutional project. So and I was in my initial stage of my career. So it was a great learning opportunity for me. So yeah, so that was one of the projects. And also before that, getting into profession, when I was in my master's, I also participated in few conferences which were related to sustainable design. So my final year master's dissertation, which was based on daylighting in a outpatient department. So that particular project also got selected for PLEA, Passive Low Energy Architecture Conference, which is done every year. So at that point of time, it was done by Edinburgh University, which is in Scotland, and I was selected for that particular conference to present my dissertation. And finally, after the process, my dissertation was published by their journal. So that was one of my achievements. That was an academic achievement, but professionally, yeah, I did work on LEED certified buildings. Yeah, and also one more thing that recently I just completed my certification with Ontario Association of Architects. So now I'm licensed with them as well. So that is like a big milestone for me.
This is huge. Congratulations.
Yeah, so that is my recent most biggest achievement for me right now.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm struggling through my licensure too. So I understand how difficult it is to get licensed. Yeah, good.
I think that's because what happened is that when I came to this country, like they do not accept you as an architect unless and until you are licensed in this country. So like it was like a shock for me. Oh, why can't I use why can't I call myself architect? So the reason, just being telling that you are not licensed in this country, you can't call yourself an architect. So like that was a bit strange for me. So I thought that I would complete this process of getting licensing in this country so that eventually I can call myself as an architect. So right now I've just passed through that stage, and so finally I can call myself as a registered architect in this country officially.
Yeah, that is actually a good motivation to get your licensure so that you can call yourself as an architect. I think in India, you, after you complete your graduation, you sort of directly can call yourself as an architect because you sort of get licensure at the same time. But in US and in Canada, you have to go through a process of examination to get your licensure done, which is done after your master's and after you gain some experience, because I think that's a requirement. So that's a good point. Well, this was amazing talking to you, Sahil. You've shared some great insights for our listeners out there. Thank you so much for your time. Hopefully this inspires our students, and we wish you luck for your future. Thank you. Take care.
Take care. Thank you so much, Sejvin. Yeah, it was fun, and sharing about architecture. I mean, I'm always ready to help other architects in the profession. So if any students are getting inspired by this, so why not? So if any students are inspired by this, then why not? I would like to do this and help them in any way if I can help them.
We will definitely connect any students that come our way with you. Thank you so much for helping. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you so much. Take care.